Okay, now we'll cover emphasis, the third principle of art. When an element or area within an image seems to attract attention or stands out, we call this emphasis. Most images use some kind of emphasis to establish what is important in the work of art. The image below is a poster made by Alexander Rodchenko in the early 20th century. And this is actually graphic design, it's not fine art. There are three ways to achieve emphasis. One is emphasis through contrast, two is emphasis through placement, and three is emphasis through isolation. And we're going to look at all three. So we've got this poster by Alexander Rodchenko, and we need to think about visual weight. How do we know when some part of an artwork has emphasis? We sense the visual weight of its elements, and visual weight refers to the apparent heaviness or lightness of a form arranged in a composition as gauged by how insistently they draw our attention. And this is a quote from the text that I think is quite good. That is it stands out. There's a part of the image that stands out, and the visual weight is the strongest at the woman's face. This form is in contrast of shape and complexity. So anywhere else in the image, there's nothing that looks figurative. There's nothing that looks like a woman's face. And so it stands out because of that. Also, there is a strong directional force that leads the eye toward her mouth in particular. So you've got this movement here, this geometric shape or this organization of geometric shapes that create a big arrow. There's also emphasis through contrast. Focal point results at the place where one element differs from the other. This can be a value contrast, a color contrast, a contrast of shapes, a contrast of scale, a contrast of texture, any of those elements. Many times it is a combination of some or all of these. The above painting by Arbikata demonstrates a strong contrast in value and color between the dark blue tree in the foreground and the lighter and warmer background. The tree seems to have more visual weight because blue is very much opposite or different than the warmer colors behind it. There is also emphasis through placement. Elements in a design can be arranged to point toward a focal point. So what is the focal point of the above painting by Thomas Eakins? We look at the alignment of the figures. They seem to form a triangle. This figure, due to its orientation, gives you a shape that leans this way, that picks up on this figure, that is on this figure. You follow it down here to this figure diving in the water, down to this figure swimming, back again. This one could be part of the triangle too, so you could see it as a triangle here, or you could see this figure also as part of the triangle there. So the placement of shapes and values creates pathways that lead toward the standing figure on top. So this figure carries you this way, this leads you this way, and this leads you this way. So there are three kind of directional movements going towards the focal point. And then also there's a lot of value contrast here. The value of the figure is very light, and it's placed against a very dark value, the trees behind. So the standing figure is definitely the focal point. There's also emphasis through isolation. Here's another painting by Thomas Eakins. One element simply being set apart from the others will break an overall pattern and seem to stand out. So we see the figures in the foreground set apart from those in the background by value. These figures are darker. The light values are darker than the light values here, and they're in shadow. The bright light shines on these figures, so they stand out. We also see that the figures in the foreground are in two groups. The one on our right is a larger group of several people. And on the left, the doctor stands alone and apart. He is given emphasis and through isolation. Sometimes artists choose to emphasize the whole over the parts, or maybe there isn't any emphasis at all. In this image by C.E.B. Reyes, the repeating patterns and shapes and colors lead the viewer's eye throughout the composition, all over almost at once. You don't tend to get caught up in winning any one particular place. You just move around the image. Reyes is an American artist and one of the leading people in software art. He creates these images with computer code. And if you're interested, you can follow that link and read more about it.